Well, welcome everyone to Beyond Expo and CGTN's collaboration to bring you a rock star panel to talk about the latest trends in technology, decipher how these technological trends may reshape the world as we know it today, how we can better enable technology to be a force for good, and we'll also discuss how the world is witnessing the rise of a new global innovation hub. China's Greater Bay Area, or the GBA as it's otherwise known, 9 cities, 2 special administrative regions, over 70 million people, and an economic output of nearly 1.7 trillion US dollars in 2019. By itself, that would make the GBA the world's 12th largest economy. We'll zoom in today especially on Macau, of course part of the GBA, where this special administrative region of China is on its way to diversify its economy and massively boost its stature in the world as an innovation force to be reckoned with. So, to talk about all of this, we're joined by Jason Ho, co-founder of BEYOND International Technology Innovation Expo. Jason is also the founder of Forte Incubator, a council member of the Economic Development Council of the Macau SAR, and president of the Macau Technology General Association in 2020. James Mi is one of China's top venture capitalists, a founding partner at Lightspeed China Partners with over $2 billion under management. James was an early investor in China's e-commerce giant Meituan, as well as in Pinduoduo. Dr. Brian Gu is the vice chairman and president of XPeng Motors, of course, a leading EV company here in China. And David Aikman is the former chief representative officer of the World Economic Forum, Greater China. So, gentlemen, welcome to you all. It's going to be a very fascinating discussion, I feel, today as we talk about the future of technology and how that may reshape our world. Jason, let me begin with you. Talk to us first about the vision, the purpose behind the founding of Beyond Expo.
Thank you for having me. I think the purpose of Beyond is we felt like since 2020, after the pandemic happened, we felt like there's a very a need that we need something like this, a platform like this in Asia that could show off more technology solutions or products in Asia. I think there's a lack of these kind of international platforms in Asia, especially in Greater Bay Area. That's why we wanted to build this platform to showcase the newest technology, the most innovative solutions. So that's the reason why we wanted to build this platform and to bring more people to know more about Macau as well. As you've said, Macau is a special administrative region of China. I think it's a very interesting place where Western culture and the Chinese culture are mixed together so peacefully. And it's called the Vegas of Asia as well. So I think why not having a platform like this in Macau? So that's one of the major reasons why we wanted to build this platform in Macau.
Yeah, and Macau will be known for more than just being the Las Vegas of the Asia Pacific, right? Because we are seeing that boost towards innovation in this special administrative region of China. And more so, Macau will increasingly become a science and technology powerhouse with spillover effects throughout the rest of the Asia Pacific, I'm sure. And we're going to talk about more of that, Jason, as we continue our conversation on this. So for all of our panelists, I want to begin with a very big and very broad question. And that's, I want everybody to imagine what the world may look like 50 years from now, right? So we're not talking about the middle of the century, but from 50 years from now, so around 2070, how technology may reshape our world as we know it today. James, how about I begin with you on this front, because you are in the venture capital space, you are looking at frontier technologies and how they may reshape society. Give us your vision for 50 years from now.
Well, that's very interesting question. I think by that time, all the transportation will totally be different. Now we'll be seeing autonomous driving cars everywhere. And I think that you see the evidence from XPeng and Brian will talk about, but I think all the boats will be electrical or hydrogen fuel cell powered, including all the airplanes. It'll be self-driving, the autonomous driving. And also, I think there's a breakthrough technologies in the biotechnologies, and now average life expectancies will be over 100 years. So that's an exciting future we are looking forward to.
James, when you talk about perhaps life expectancies going beyond 100 years old, does that mean we're healthier for longer as well?
That's right. And there will be treatments for different types of cancers. And so there will be many different breakthroughs, although we are facing the COVID and their increasing challenges. But by that time, the climate change will really be able to address it, and the biotechnology really will take us to a much healthier and a longer life expectancies stage.
Okay, and then Brian, over to you in terms of how you see the future of mobility, I guess, 50 years from now. So give us your take first on the broader image, the broader world in 2070-ish, but then also the future of mobility. So by then, I'm assuming that we will be seeing fully autonomous electric or clean energy powered vehicles, either on land or in air or on the seas, fully electric, fully clean powered, fully autonomous. So we're going to reach that level 5 autonomous driving, land, sea, and air by 2070. Do you think that's a pretty plausible scenario, or absolutely for sure?
Well, I think 50 years is a long time, and I think it will be enough for us to develop into a completely new framework. I agree with James' assertion that autonomous driving will be in everyday's life. And also, I think the energy will achieve carbon zero, carbon neutrality, because if we don't achieve by then we're all doomed. So I think there's definitely a change in terms of energy agenda. And also, I think there's the entire mindset, I would say, change in terms of really understanding the transportation in terms of it's not going to be just viewed as car versus plane versus boat. I think your personal mobility will be all integrated. For example, what right now at XPeng, we're trying to develop not just vehicles, but flying devices, last mile solution robots, as well as probably sea water-based transportation, all utilize the same energy powered sources, same AI powered sensor and autonomous driving engines, as well as new perceptions that can really integrate all these in a very friendly and interesting user interface. So I think the mobility in 50 years will be very different, but also it means that it will be very integrated. So I think that will, in 50 years definitely will become a reality. And then on top of it, I think you will see that human will be immersed with a virtual reality world. I think obviously a lot of people talk about metaverse, but I think as we can see that the hardware immersion with software and virtual reality and a total different metaverse, that will be, I think, also future in 50 years.
Yeah. That's a very interesting scenario to imagine. Brian, you're also working at XPeng on a flying vehicle, right? It can be a car, but it can also be some kind of air mobility device. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about that and when we can expect that to come on market?
Yeah, so we just announced that we're gonna be, developing a flying vehicle. What's different about this product is that it can be sold as electric vehicles that you can drive on a daily basis, has a range around 700 to 800 kilometers per charge, just like any other regular EV. But that device or that vehicle will have the ability to vertically take off and fly in low altitude, which means below 100 meters for about 50 to 100 kilometers. So that device, in our mind, is really a showcase of how future mobility between EV and other sort of transportation devices can be connected through same energy sources, same motor designs, same autonomous driving perception algorithm, and an ability to plan destination to destination routes. So the combination of this really links the ecosystem of mobility together. So I think that's why I think a vehicle with flying capability will become a real sort of a feasible product. And as the low altitude economy in China or globally are opening up, you'll see more and more of these devices and be utilized. And I think it will drastically increase the efficiency of transportation in the future.
Okay. And one final point on flying vehicles, Brian, and then I'll get to David, is that we don't need to learn how to fly, right? This will be autonomous or fully autonomous down the road, these flying vehicles.
Right. So for our current design thinking is that if it relies on point-to-point autonomous flying, you don't need any license other than the driver's license because the drone will fly itself. But if you want to have the ability to manually control a part of that device, you may need to take exams or do some tests. But that's obviously something we haven't developed with the regulatory bodies. But the base case is that this will be flying on its own, and you don't need a driver's license for that.
Fantastic. I mean, I'm certainly looking forward to maybe flying a vehicle if I can get away from these traffic jams from mega cities. I mean, mega cities are great, but sometimes the traffic jams can drive you a little bit crazy. So exciting stuff there. Thank you for that, Brian. David, let me come to you and how you see the world 50 years from now, because formerly at the World Economic Forum, you were exposed to some very interesting thinking in terms of frontier technologies and how societies can bring all of that together.
Sure. Well, I think that I'd agree with everything the panelists said in terms of where things are going. And I really feel that the climate emergency is going to drive a whole new wave of tech innovation. I think particularly around clean energy, excited about what's happening in hydrogen fuel cells and hydrogen infrastructure, particularly here in China. But also I'm going to be a tech optimist and believe that we are going to have fusion power coming down the road. There's some new companies and some new technologies emerging in this space, and all the big guys, Bezos and Gates and Musk, and everybody's investing in the energy space. So I think in 50 years, we're going to see some really significant breakthroughs. Once you solve that clean energy issue, it opens up a whole lot of other things. I think climate's also going to drive rethinking of our food structures and food ecosystems. So really being able to move, beyond meat into sophisticated vegetable proteins, maybe printed steaks and those kind of things, so that we can really rethink our whole agriculture model, because I think people are going to be, looking for, a better health, better lifestyle. So I think this whole sort of human-machine interface is going to evolve beyond the kind of metaverse and augmented reality, but really into the whole healthcare space. I mean, imagine in the future, you aren't feeling well. You scan yourself with your device, it tells you what's wrong. You can go to the pharmacy and 3D print specific medicine, based on your DNA that will be custom for you, and take it away with you. I mean, this is the kind of thing we're right on the cusp of a lot of these technologies coming together and working together to create this better future. So I think the next couple of years and the next 50 years are going to be very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, we are seeing the biotechnology revolution really picking up pace as well. David, then based on what you've seen so far, do you think that 3D and perhaps 4D printed organs, that will be the norm in the next few decades' time?
I definitely think we're going to see major breakthroughs in this space. I mean, the technology is getting exponentially better. The computing power behind that it continues to grow exponentially. So, I think this is a big space, and I think we'll talk about this later, but I think it's a huge opportunity for China and the Greater Bay as well.
Yeah. Okay. And then Jason, I got to come to you and get your vision for 50 years from now, because you represent the next generation, right? Your generation is going to inherit this world where we will see technology absolutely exploding at an accelerated rate. We have this multiplier effect, and we hear CEOs from all around the world saying that we have seen technology accelerating by 2 years within a span of a few months, right? We've seen technology accelerating by a decade in a span of a few months. So how do you see the world 50 years from now?
Right. I think it's really hard for me to predict. I agree with all the panelists' vision about 50 years later from now. But when we are doing the Beyond Expo, that's what we are trying to look for. So basically, Brian, James, and David already talked about, we actually focus in 3 sectors. The first one is infrastructure, smart city, and living, which we hope to see flying cars. We hope to see different technologies applying to the smart city, making us so convenient to travel from A point to B point, or we can do every single thing with our mobile. Those are stuff that we hope to see at Beyond Expo. So the second one is healthcare. I think after the pandemic, we see a lot of technologies applying to this industry that we haven't seen before. Especially in China, we use QR code to be our health code. We show people that if we have a green code or a red code or a yellow code, we show if we are from a high risk or a low risk area. I think this is not just a QR code. It's something that there's a lot of technologies behind it, and we can quickly trace who's the first person that got the COVID. So I think that's a very fascinating trend that we see, especially in China, that a lot of new technologies has applied to the healthcare industry that in 2 years we haven't seen it way before that. And the third one would be impact technology, that we want to focus on new technologies such as in new energy, food and agriculture. Those are the stuff that we think that not only do they change the traditional businesses, but they also solve global challenges as well. So that's why we are working closely with the UN in China as well, because they promote the Sustainable Development Goals. So that's something that we wanted to show, that with the technologies innovations right now, those are the key elements to solve different global challenges.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to talk about how technology can be a force for good, really minimizing the downsides of technology and how we can maximize the upside of technology to serve the greater good. James, I want to come back to you with your engineering background and maybe get your take on the state of quantum computing. I mean, quantum computing, this is not a new thing, right? It's not a new thing, but 50 years down the road, can we expect that pretty much everyone will have their own quantum PC, or we will really see the widespread use commercially of quantum computing? It's very difficult, I feel, but can we get there in 50 years' time?
I'm a little bit less optimistic. Probably not everybody will have a quantum computing PC available to them, but I think there will be a substantial development progress on that front. I think we'll still see traditional silicon-based computing hardwares and evolving on the Moore's law curve, and it's getting harder and harder. But quantum computing will be useful for many other high quantity computational tasks that's required for fighting climate change challenges. So that's for sure.
Brian, same question to you. I want to get your take on this as well in terms of the progress in quantum computing and when we can see commercially viable quantum computers.
Well, I'm certainly not an expert on this area, but from my understanding is that it's actually developing quite rapidly, because I think we are looking at a number of our collaborators already, starting pretty large, research push into that area, named like Alibaba and others. And then I think I always, have this optimistic view that the technology development is accelerating. I mean, as we see in the last 50 years. And I think anything we project today, I think things will move faster than we expected. So that's sort of my overall view on how these technology are developing.
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to predict, right? Because the founder of IBM, Thomas Watson, once famously said that there could be a market for just 5 personal computers, and then look where we are now. So we are doing pretty much an impossible task in terms of predicting the future 50 years from now. But it will be interesting to really sort of have a view of where that may be based on our position now. And then one final question, guys, in terms of where we may be 50 years from now. It's a very controversial subject, I believe, and that is the state of AI, right? Because everybody is talking about AI. It's influencing all of our lives. David, do you see that we can get to strong AI 50 years later in terms of getting to artificial general intelligence?
Wow, that's a tough one to call, but I think the trends are definitely pointing in that direction. And I think what's absolutely critical on AI is just that we keep the collaboration open. This open AI project, lots of different things going on, especially around the ethics of AI, including some things that my former organization, World Economic Forum, was involved in. But I think it's critical because I think it's one of these technologies that is a two-edged sword, has great potential for creativity and contribution to the economy, but also has huge destructive capabilities. And so the only way we're going to get good outcomes is if we get really different views, different opinions, different systems working together and trying to figure out how to use AI for humanity's best outcomes. That just requires continued collaboration despite whatever's going on in the geopolitical space. So the good news, I think, is that scientists and technology leaders tend to be more open and collaborative than politicians. So I am quietly optimistic, but I think it's one space that we need to pay a lot of attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. James, what do you think in terms of 50 years from now? Can a machine pass a Turing test by 2070? And do we really even want that in terms of machines getting to the level of intelligence as a human being? I mean, I feel like you either believe that we will eventually achieve AGI or AGI is impossible to achieve. Which camp do you stand in?
I'm on one side, I think in 20, 30 years, and AI will get to 90% human intelligence. But to get to the remaining 10%,
Wow.
I don't think we can get there.
You don't think we can get there in terms of full human intelligence? And maybe that's not a bad thing, right? Maybe that's not a bad thing. Jason, I want to come back to you because I feel like the Beyond Expo, of course, you can find out the true signals, the true trends in tech. So I want to ask you, what do you think right now perhaps might be the hype in tech right now? Maybe these are just gadgets or things along those lines, because we got to separate the signal from the hype.
Yep. I think for these 2 years, it's very obvious. It must be healthcare. We realize that not only do we have to have like good medicines, but then we need technologies on improving our health system, the public health system. I think that's a very important way for companies or governments to really work together to recognize the goods and either health system that people can use it on their own. So just for example, like in SDG, we talked about health for good health for everyone. So I think that's something that it's a very major topic that we have to focus more on. It's not only first world countries having the best technologies to heal their citizens. I think we need to use these technologies to other countries, such as in Africa, to help those people to figure out a way to have a better health. So I think even in 20, 30 years, there are more technologies coming up. But then I felt like healthcare is something that we should all be focusing on. And without good health, I don't think having a lot of new technologies could help humanity. So I think this is something that Beyond and myself have always been focusing on.
But David, do you think we can provide sort of high quality, innovative healthcare and make that accessible to large swaths of the global population? Is that possible? Can we do it with technology?
I think there's a lot of potential, and we've seen during the pandemic how it's accelerated the development of telemedicine and some of these healthcare solutions in dramatic ways. But we've also seen where the system breaks down. So if you look at the incredible inequity that exists and is increasing around access to vaccines and so on, it's unfortunately continuing what we've seen in access to healthcare. So I think there's sort of two dimensions. One is getting the infrastructure right and having a lot more solidarity between the wealthier nations and the poorer nations to make sure that healthcare infrastructure is being built so that drugs can be delivered and care can be delivered. But I think one way to change that paradigm is also to increase the access to telemedicine and other innovative therapies and so on, which can reduce the burden and reduce the investment needed in creating that healthcare infrastructure. So you don't need developing countries to follow the path of European healthcare system or North American healthcare system. There are probably ways that technology can help them leapfrog and create better health outcomes for their citizens without the same levels of investment. But it's going to require, I think, a lot more solidarity than we've seen certainly in the last 18 months to make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian, I want to get your take in terms of how do we really narrow the digital divide, right? Because technology as a double-edged sword, it can really widen the digital divide. And I feel we can't have that happening because as the digital divide widens, we're going to have more global instability. So how do you think technology can be a force for good in terms of narrowing the digital divide between advanced economies and developing economies who really have moved up in terms of the tech value chain, and perhaps those emerging economies and developing economies who still have a way to go?
Well, I think the digital divide exists in number of different ways, right? I mean, even within a developed country, I think as you probably can see that some of the privileged and less privileged people will have different access to technology, and also technology with a platform strength will actually deliver more wealth and capability to certain specific group of people. So I think it's not just like the developing countries versus developed countries, but within the same economic zone, you still also have the digital divide. I think to achieve a more equitable, digital access, I think first of all, I think government will have to play a role, because I think it is something that needs to be regulated to really constrain the power of digital platforms in some way. So I think China has started to do that. Even globally, I think people are trying to point attention on monopoly practices, as well as the control of data and privacy, because the data itself is vast resources that powers the differentiation in digital access. So that's one. I think how do you really control the capability of leveraging the immense power of the tech platform is a topic I think global government has to deal with. And the data privacy and data control will become, I think, another huge agenda. And then on top of it, I think it also comes down to the social responsibilities of the companies and the individuals in the sort of digital world, right? I mean, I think as companies, we need to understand to sustain the overall long-term growth, you can't be just focused on really reaping the benefit for a small group of people, because that is something that ultimately will lead to, big breakdowns and chaos. So as a company and individuals, I think that you need, to really, understand the social responsibility of technology. And that's why I think also the current trend of ESG, the focus on social, environmental responsibilities is actually giving, a push to really cause equality for the larger group of people and also the countries. So I think the combination forces of government and regulatory, as well as individual and enterprise, will actually be shaping the future agenda of digital sort of access. But I'm hopeful. I think that the current trend is towards a more balanced and equitable approach.
We definitely need to have technology more socially responsible. James, from a venture capital standpoint, based on what Brian has said, I mean, how do you think about perhaps reducing inequality through technology in terms of increasing inclusiveness, and as well as perhaps reducing global poverty? how technology can do all of that, because you want to be a social impact investor as well. You invested in XPeng, of course. That is contributing to our global fight against climate change, against reducing carbon footprint. So from your perspective, how do you think about technology as a force for good, reducing inequality, etc.?
I think it's very, very important. I think the overriding consideration for us is when we make an investment and we think about whether the investment in the company business can have a positive impact for the society in the long term. And there could be other profitable business, but not really contributing positively to the society, we will pass those investments. And certainly the biggest challenges we are all facing is the climate change and inequality. And for inequality, I think the technology can really play a role distributing quality healthcare and also education services to people, say, in the rural areas that they just don't have the access to those services. And even with the government help, but without technology, actually, it's very costly and not very feasible to make those services, quality services available. So that's the area that we really specifically focused and try to figure out technology can, and also entrepreneurs and have that ambition and motivation to make those services available. So I think it's very, very important. And also we are looking at the other technologies. I think we have seen the advance of the social network services and the short video services, and has very, very popular. But we also are saying, and to some degrees, when the users are using those services every day, extended time period, actually, it may not be as good because the people's time and attention is being sucked in on these services. So it has to be a balance on what you can deliver to people. So those are the considerations are important.
Okay, but can you get a return on your investment if you have socially responsible technology? I mean, are these two things necessarily mutually exclusive? I don't think it is, but what do you think from a venture capital perspective?
I certainly don't think they are exclusive. I think our primary consideration is whether it has a positive impact on the society. I think that makes it even more sustainable over long term. I give you one example. There's a company that they developed a new technology to diagnose and treat brain disease. And it's very different from the traditional drug-based approach. It's very risky, and many of the funds passed the investment. But we felt that there's certain
Oh, seems like we've lost James's audio a little bit over there, so perhaps we can get James to continue his thought in just a second. But Jason, I want to come to you and ask you, are these conversations being had at the Beyond Expo in terms of how technology can be a greater force for good, in terms of how technology can reduce inequality and address the common challenges that we face as humanity?
Yes, we actually have, besides the expo, we do have a lot of forums at Beyond. We do have deep dive forums that we focus on different sectors, such as new energy, such as e-commerce, such as smart city. Those are the deep dive forums that we want to give different industry insights to our audience. So the second one would be Global Investment Summit. So that one, James will be part of it as well. We want to let people to know more about the trends in the VC worlds and the PE worlds. The third one would be the Sdg Summit, which is we work with UN China to let people know more about impact investing and how impact technologies can actually be financially feasible. It's not mutually exclusive to each other. I think adding to what James was talking about, I think impact investing, caring about the future, will bring you more value to this company in the long term. So that's what we are trying to let our audience know as well. So we will be discussing different strategy towards the SDGs.
Fantastic. Looking forward to all of that. And then, David, let me give you the last word on this section of our discussion. I mean, based on where we are right now in terms of the geopolitical atmosphere, how do you think we can really bring our international community together in terms of how we can use technology as a force multiplier for good? You've got a lot of experience in bringing organization and people together, bridging communities and culture. Can we do that with tech right now?
I think we can. I'm an eternal optimist, and I'll tell you why. Because there's two groups that collaborate really well, and that's scientists who right now are working together on breakthroughs regardless of what their countries think, and it's young tech entrepreneurs who are not so much bothered about there's where they come from. They're born with a global mindset. I mean, the number of Chinese entrepreneurs who have started companies around the world, including the platform we're using to do this call on. I mean, it's just exceptional. And so I think there's tremendous talent out there that wants to work together and values the diversity of thinking. But I think it's the second dimension is kind of boring, but also really important, which is, we have to come together on standards and interoperability. I mean, you don't want your self-driving car to stop at the border. You don't want to be able to get access to precision healthcare because hospitals can't share your data when you're on vacation or whatever. I mean, so I think there's going to be a lot of effort behind the scenes and below the radar on this, because we just need this stuff to work. And the cost and the inefficiencies are just too great. And so even if the political rhetoric around technology may be chilly for some while, there still is and there still will be collaborations going on in the space. I mean, right now you look at something like 5G, very contentious. Potentially, in the media, people like to hype up the differences and the challenges. But right now, you've got both American and Chinese technology and telecom companies working together on some of the open source code that makes this stuff work. And so the collaboration goes on no matter what the politicians may say, because, like I said, we just need this stuff to work, and everybody recognizes that.
Yeah, love that optimistic note. I think here in China at CGTN, we definitely emphasize what brings us together rather than what divides us. So love that sense of optimism, David. And on that note of optimism, I am really optimistic, I feel, about China's Greater Bay Area. I think all of us are on this panel. I'm not sure if we have James back, but two of our panelists right now are in China's Greater Bay Area. Jason is in Macau, and then Brian is in Guangzhou, both part of the GBA, this massive economic area with great innovation potential. Jason, I want to get your take first in terms of what do you think the potential is for the GBA to really become a global science, technology, and innovation hub? I personally feel it's well on its way there. It's got a great foundation. But in terms of really being a global innovation hub, what do you think that potential is?
I agree. I mean, for Greater Bay Area, as you said in the opening, there's 70 million people population. It's very unique because it includes Hong Kong, it includes Macau, and includes the Guangdong province. So Guangdong province is already one of the biggest region in China. Hong Kong is a financial center in the whole world. Macau is an entertainment center in Asia. I think for those three regions combining forces together, it's gonna be very special because there are three legal systems, three different currencies in this area. So there's finance, there's the whole supply chain in Guangdong includes Shenzhen, Dongguan. Those are a very huge supply chain for hardware companies to be in. So I think for Greater Bay Area, it's so special that people outside of China might not know much about. I think people should really look into this area. I think it's going to be a very vibrant area. I think it's very attractive for Western world to come to maybe in Hong Kong or Macau to really join forces with the talents in mainland, and they could do something together finally in this area. So I think that's the main reason why China wants to promote this area, because of the uniqueness of this area.
Yeah, and I want to ask Brian about that uniqueness. I mean, I feel personally, if you want to know where the world of innovation is going, where the world of science and technology is going, you have to understand China's Greater Bay Area as well. This is going to be a key barometer in terms of the future of innovation. And Brian, I just want to ask you in terms of what makes China's Greater Bay Area perhaps unique compared to the other GBAs that we see, for example, in Tokyo, in San Francisco, in New York. And I feel Jason touched upon it already in terms of we have that manufacturing powerhouse that is Guangdong province, and we see that manufacturing upgrade. We have that really entrepreneurial zeal, that innovation DNA in Shenzhen. We have an international financial center in Hong Kong. We have an up-and-coming innovation center in Macau as well. And you combine all of that together, manufacturing prowess, we have innovation prowess, we have financial center, all of that I feel makes the Greater Bay Area really unique. What do you think, Brian?
Absolutely. I mean, I think Greater Bay Area has the characteristics nobody else in the world has. I mean, there's a few things you can just draw on. One is that the diversity, right? I mean, other countries usually are, clustered around the same, either one municipality, one country, whereas in Greater Bay Area, you have the advantages of multiple cultural, regulatory background or legal frameworks can be applied to companies of different needs. So I think that diversity, I think, is rivaled anywhere in the world. And then the second, I think, characteristic is the depth. In terms of a Bay Area, if you think about it, this is actually, you can get across from the developed world all the way to developing world. You have actually the depth of the development of Hong Kong, Shenzhen, who are already I would say super cities in the world, and then you have the upcoming tier one, also called like near tier one cities, and then you have the tier two, tier three cities, all representing different economic potential and strengths. And that depth, I think, is also very rare in other sort of geographic clusters. And then the third thing is that you have actually center of excellence clustered around this area. You have the financial super hub of Hong Kong that really draws international talents, have a framework has been established for decades, and really have become a capital hub for many years already that can radiate to other parts of the region. You have Shenzhen and Guangdong, where you have strong, like I said, manufacturing base, but also technology leaders that has been spinning off technology and talents and really supplying the engine of growth. You have Macau as the upcoming sort of hub that really draws upon the support, but also has the inner strength or unique positions that provide entertainment, leisure, and also I think that hopefully tech innovation as an alternative to the region. So the unique combination of this depth, diversity, and also center of excellence really provides an opportunity for companies to thrive, regardless of the stage of development. Because other Bay Areas, usually either you're startup, you're great in that area, or you're a very established company to enjoy, for example, in Manhattan. But here you actually can, really get the support regardless of the stage of development. So I think we're quite fortunate as XPeng being based in Guangzhou. We can obviously draw upon Guangzhou's vast support for automotive industry. It actually is one of the automotive hubs in China. But at the same time, you will have access to the technology centers in Shenzhen and also the capital bases in Hong Kong. So that's why I think companies in Greater Bay Area will have a higher potential for growth and also support for its development.
Yeah, wow, it just seems like there's a lot of synergies going on in terms of the Greater Bay Area and really exciting stuff going on in that part of the country. James, I want to ask you in terms of the tech ecosystem that's available in the GBA right now, the innovation ecosystem, the startup ecosystem, the venture capital ecosystem. How do you see that in the Greater Bay Area?
I think it's very robust and it's growing. Compared with other traditional innovation centers like around Beijing or Shanghai. I think the Greater Bay Area certainly now is having a much stronger momentum growing. And one thing I really feel that the Greater Bay Area has one aspect that is different from the Beijing or Shanghai innovation is most of the people living in Shenzhen, or for example, they are not born there. They are like immigrants to Shenzhen, and they are self-selected people, are very entrepreneurial, and I think coupled with the financial resources in Hong Kong and Macau, I think it speaks about the potential for the innovation.
Yeah, that entrepreneurial spirit, definitely we see that in the Greater Bay Area. But then, James, I want to quickly follow up and ask you, what do you think about perhaps the science and engineering talent that you see in the area in terms of higher institutions of learning, in terms of R&D capabilities of the GBA?
I think that part, it could be better. I think definitely you have these tech hubs like Shen in Tencent, that they have a lot of tech talents, or DJI or Huawei, and XPeng now is becoming another very big corporation with a lot of talents. But if you look at the scale-wise, it's still smaller compared with the Shanghai or Yangtze River Delta or Beijing areas. And also, I think the raw talent, the universities, the tech institutions, I think that critical mass is smaller. That will actually be the driver for long-term these innovations. That part, I think that still needs to be further developed.
Okay, so in terms of next steps, that is what the GBA needs to do. Gotcha on that point. And then, David, you've certainly been in China for a while. You've traveled across the country. How do you view the potential of the Greater Bay Area?
I would just echo what people have said. I mean, I think it's the diversity of the Greater Bay Area, and I think it's both the manufacturing capability, the finance capability, and so on. And it really speaks to, I think, this whole sort of, what I try to explain to people outside of China is the speed of China. People can't really get their head around it unless they're here. And I'm sure that for XPeng, as I know for other companies, within that Guangdong province, you have access to every kind of innovation you need, whether it's materials innovation, hardware innovation, IoT, software innovation. I mean, all the talent is right there. And so it allows you to innovate much faster and iterate much faster. And so the companies that I see are so much more nimble and agile than in other parts of the world. But that's matched, I think, with a faster pace of adoption. I mean, the Chinese people are so much more open to trying new technologies or trying a beta version, which isn't perfect yet, but they see the potential of how it can improve their lives. And so I think that twin sort of speed of innovation and speed of adoption allows this rapid prototyping and rapid development, which is just unparalleled. So, you look at the diversity of the suppliers and the diversity of the companies, but then you've got this massive base of 70 million plus people who are ready to try the technologies, who are ready to adopt, who have, as one of the panelists said, self-selected to be there with that entrepreneurial spirit. And so I think we're going to see an even greater acceleration of China speed thanks to the engine of GBA.
Yeah, and that greater acceleration of China's speed, Jason, I'm assuming we can see technology spillovers from the Greater Bay Area into, I would say, Southeast Asia and the wider Asia Pacific region. What do you think, Jason?
Yes, absolutely. I think we see a lot of trends having Southeast Asia countries. They actually learn from the Chinese companies nowadays. It used to be maybe 10 years ago, maybe Chinese companies learning from the West, but I felt like in recent years, Southeast Asia companies are actually learning from China as well, because they can see with such huge population, how can we apply technology and innovations to our real world. So I think they see similarity, and because of the geographic, we are more closer to each other. So I think it's easier for us to really to let the Southeast Asia companies learn a little bit more about those technologies and apply those to their own country. So I see a lot of these trends these years.
And then Jason, where you are, we got to talk about Macau, because this is really an up and coming destination when it comes to innovation. How is Macau's technology and innovation ecosystem right now, and what more needs to be done?
I think we're getting there, to be honest. We could attract a lot of talents. We have a very good policies that we have low tax rate than Hong Kong. I think it really have a lot of potential on at least attracting talents. But then, as our panelists said, that we need more raw talent. We don't have very strong universities compared to Hong Kong. So we need to be, at least on that front, we need to keep improving. But then, at least in terms of policies, I think Macau has a lot of support from the mainland government, and we actually is in a very unique position that we actually got a new piece of island. It's called the Hengqin, that we will co-manage with the Guangdong province. So we actually have 3 times bigger land than we used to be. So Macau used to be only 36 kilometers square, and now we have this Hengqin in-depth cooperation zone that they have around 106 kilometers square. So I think it provides us a lot more space and land for us to diversify our economy. But I think Macau itself, we still need a lot of work, but then I think it's a very unique position, and it's a very attractive destination for a lot of people to at least just come and see what Macau is working on, and what Macau is about, and what position Macau is positioning itself inside China and in Asia. So I think that's what Beyond is. We want people to come and see Greater Bay Area, see Macau, and see the whole Asia. So that's basically what Beyond is.
Yeah, I mean, Beyond, a great platform to really get the world to see the potential of Macau as an innovation hub, because you've got some top-notch leaders from both the public sector and the private sector really coming together to talk about the future trends of technology and really to unleash the potential of Macau. Brian, if I could come to you in terms of how Macau is positioning itself to become an innovation leader, because you're based in Guangzhou, and Macau is part of that technology corridor in terms of the development plan that China has for this part of the country. It's Guangzhou, and then, like Jason mentioned, Guangzhou, Hengqin, and Macau. That is one technology corridor. How do you see this sort of support system really helping Macau take it to the next level, go to the next stage in terms of becoming a technology powerhouse?
Yeah, I think it will take time and design to get Macau up to the same level of development as, let's say, Shenzhen or even some Hong Kong, because obviously, as Jason pointed out, I think Macau in the past has been suffered from a lack of land, also lack of talent, because it's actually relatively small in size compared to Hong Kong and obviously the Shenzhen area. I think there's a few things that needs to happen. First of all, giving enough policy support and also the government support from China. For example, the Hengqin initiative is a great, I would say, sort of new policy that give the boost to Macau's sort of attractiveness as well, overall capability. And then with policy, you need to attract people. So I think the first phase is utilizing, leveraging the policy in terms of economic growth, tax breaks, and other sort of incentives, really to attract companies as well as individuals to move and based in Hengqin area, and really to provide the productivity strength to the region. And then the second phase will be bringing, once the people is coming, bringing the technology and the company development behind them. But I think in the first phase, because of lack of supply chain, I think probably the industries will be mostly focused on specific technology research, maybe some financial as well as entertainment development areas, as well as biotech. These does not require large supply chain. So I think those are probably the first phase of the companies moving to the Macau and Hengqin area. And then with time, I think you need to really draw the supply chain to come to the region in order to develop a robust manufacturing base. So I think if you see that, it's already it's starting that process of attracting the talent. So I think given time and also given enough support, I think you will see the region become one of the key sort of development engines for the Greater Bay Area. And then for XPeng, I think we definitely look forward to really taking advantage of these opportunities, in terms of policy, talent, as well as unique strength of Macau, and really see how we can actually use that either as a hub for our technology development, as well as for our international business development, because of unique positions.
James, do you think Macau should specialize in a certain type of frontier technology that we see right now? For example, should it specialize in biomedicine? Should it specialize more on the AI front, IoT? What do you think?
I think that could be a good approach. I think given the size limit, I think Hengqin is really a very brilliant kind of extension of the resources that Macau would have. And Zhuhai actually is known for some of the design technology, innovative companies. And so that breeds very naturally. I think that needs some focus, less capital, manufacturing intensive type of innovation, and attract the research, development, R&D centers. It could be the big conglomerate, but there are more R&D part that brings the talents, or the startups, less capital intensive, but very design technologies. And I think that's will be effective approach. But also, I just want to comment, I think there's another part that could be designed, because the other very promising areas and developing very well, Shenzhen, for example, the housing price is very up there. So if Hengqin and Macau, and they can remain to provide affordable housing for these tech talents, and also coupled with good education school systems that can bring a good quality schools, and that will be very attractive for talents. And coupled with Macau, that can develop further on the capital system, supply systems. And I think that will be a very promising future.
James, real quick, but do we then need sort of a convergence of regulations? Because like Jason mentioned, we have a certain set of regulations in Hong Kong, in Macau, and then on the Chinese mainland as well when it comes to Guangdong province. Do you see greater convergence of regulations as definitely a necessary way to go in order to truly unleash the potential of this area?
I think so, but also I think it would be good to have each region, even they are working together very closely, they could have their own specific policies, like we mentioned about tax policies or international trade business, and take advantage of the Macau that has been very friendly to a lot of the international capital flows and commercial goods being in and out, and that sometimes it could be important to technology companies, and when they are developing not just for solution for China, but also in Asia or rest of the world.
And I would just add, as we're running a bit short on time, I would just add, I'm excited about this area because we are seeing really the openness of this entire region of the Asia Pacific region, right? We have the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP, coming into force next year, and that is going to really open new opportunities for the Greater Bay Area, I feel, in terms of how fast it can iterate. We have China beginning to work actively to join the CPTPP. It's already applied to join DIPA, which will really see the seamless flow of digital products from one country to another. So all of these things combined together, I think, will definitely further unleash the potential of the Greater Bay Area. Jason, we're a bit out of time. I want to give you the last word in terms of what is the potential of Macau. If you could maybe give us a 10 to 20 second elevator pitch in terms of the potential of Macau as a place to innovate, what would it be?
Low tax rate, attractive destination, a very entertainment place, welcoming place. I think Macau is on the urge of being one of the best area in China to be technology innovative, and also to the financial industries to come join us to bring together the elements that we all have in Greater Bay Area, and Macau could be one of the major key elements for them to really do something here.
Yeah, and Beyond Expo, of course, again, a great platform to showcase the potential of Macau. Virtual opening, that's already happened. You've got great sessions already, great speakers online virtually. And then the actual opening of the Beyond Expo, Jason, if I'm correct, that's going to be on December the 2nd through to the 4th. So a lot of exciting sessions in terms of impact investing, in terms of the future of mobility, what we can do right now to make sure technology works for the greater good. A fascinating discussion with all of our panelists today. We talked about the future of technology, how that may reshape our world, how we can use tech for good, and the Greater Bay Area in terms of the potential of the GBA to become an innovation powerhouse for the world, as well as Macau, this up-and-coming place for innovation as well. So thank you all for joining us. Jason Ho, co-founder of Beyond Expo, James Mee from Lightspeed China Partners, David Aikman, former Chief Representative Officer of the World Economic Forum here in Greater China, as well as Brian Gu, Vice Chairman and President of XPeng Motors. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.